Your mind is pulled in a dozen directions before breakfast. The ancient philosopher Epictetus offered a single, piercing truth. It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. That is the core of a thoughtful approach to managing your thoughts, the disciplined practice of observing and directing your internal dialogue. This video will show you how mastering this internal space is the only reliable foundation for practical self-direction in your external world. We will explore a complete system built on 4 pillars: perception, judgment, intention, and action. What if the key to taking control was not about managing your time, but about managing your mind? What if your biggest obstacle to getting things done is not a lack of time or resources, but a fundamental misunderstanding of where your power actually lies? This is the exact confusion the Stoic philosopher Epictetus sought to end. He drew a line in the sand of human experience. Some things are up to us, he taught, and some things are not. Up to us are our own opinions, our impulses, our desires, and our actions. Not up to us are our body, our property, our reputation, and our public offices. In simpler terms, the entire internal landscape of your mind is your domain. Everything outside of it, every external result, is not. This is the dichotomy of control, and it is not just a philosophical idea. It is the most practical compass you can use for navigating your life with purpose. True self-direction begins with this clarity. Without it, you are like a sailor trying to steer a ship by grabbing at the waves. You exhaust yourself. Then acknowledge the elements that are not: other people's reactions, timing, market conditions, chance. This simple act of sorting is the first and most powerful step in thought management. It immediately tells you where to point your energy. It turns vague worry into a clear list of actionable items, and it begins to build the resilient core from which all practical self-direction flows. That line you just drew in your mind, the one separating what is up to you from what is not just a boundary, it is a fortress gate. And standing guard at that gate is your most critical faculty. The Stoics called it proherses, your capacity to choose. Think of your mind as a courtroom. Every piece of sensory input, every passing thought, every external event knocks at the door as a piece of evidence. The critical question is this: are you a passive juror, swept along by whatever is presented? Or are you the presiding judge who decides what gets admitted into the official record? This is the practice of mastering your impressions, and it is the gatekeeper of true self-direction. An impression is simply the raw data of experience. You see a number pop up on your phone, you hear a certain tone in a colleague's voice, you feel a tightness in your chest before a difficult conversation. That is the impression. It is neutral, like a notification on a screen. The judgment is everything that follows automatically. That number is a bill I cannot pay. That tone means they disrespect me. This tightness means I am going to fail. Our minds are wired to jump from impression to judgment in a fraction of a second, often lacing that judgment with fear, anger, or anticipation. Stoic thought management is the conscious, deliberate pause you insert between the notification and your reaction. It is the moment where you, as the judge, examine the evidence before you let it shape your inner world. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who ruled one of history's most powerful empires, spent his private writings reminding himself of this exact practice. In his meditations, he constantly instructed himself to examine the substance and the cause of every impression. Strip it down to its bare facts, he would say. See it for what it is, not for what your initial story says it is. This is not about suppressing emotion. It is about interrogating the automatic narrative that creates the emotion. That space between impression and judgment is where your freedom lies. It is the birthplace of choice. Undisciplined impressions lead directly to reactive, impulsive behavior. Managed impressions create the quiet room where you can decide who you want to be in that moment. Consider a modern scenario. You receive a terse one-line email from your manager. The impression is the text on the screen. The almost instantaneous judgment might be, they are angry with me, my work is inadequate, I am in trouble. If you assent to that judgment without examination, your entire physiology changes. Your heart rate jumps, your focus shatters. You might fire off a defensive reply or spend the next hour in a spiral of anxiety. Your self-direction has been hijacked by an unexamined impression. Now apply the pause. You receive the same email. You feel the initial jolt, the story beginning to form. But you activate your inner judge. You examine the evidence. This is text. I cannot hear their tone. I do not know what kind of morning they are having. This message lacks context, which is a fact, not an indictment. Perhaps they are simply in a hurry. Perhaps the brevity is unintentional. With the story disarmed, you now have space to choose a response. You can draft a calm, clarifying reply. You can decide to focus on your next task until more information comes. You have kept your inner citadel secure. Your energy remains yours to direct. Take a moment to look back on your own week. Recall a recent strong emotional reaction, a flash of frustration or a spike of worry. Can you trace it back to the initial impression? What was the raw data, and what was the story you told yourself about it in that immediate, unchallenged moment? That act of tracing is the beginning of reclaiming your courtroom. It is how you stop being a juror of your own thoughts and start being the judge. And as any good judge knows, the quality of the verdict depends entirely on the quality of the evidence you allow in. Stoicism is not about feeling nothing. It is about seeing clearly, and clear sight is the prerequisite for clear action. That moment of pause we just explored, the space between impression and judgment, has a specific destination. The Stoics called it objective representation. Imagine you are a scientist observing a phenomenon, or a journalist reporting the facts of a situation. Your goal is to strip away the layer of personal narrative, the dramatic soundtrack your mind adds, and describe what is happening in plain, neutral language. Marcus Aurelius constantly drilled himself in this. He would take any troubling event and break it down to its material nature, what it is made of, and its causal nature, where it came from. He was not denying reality. He was clarifying it, removing the emotional static to hear the true signal. This practice transforms internal noise into actionable information. A subjective view is clouded by value-laden adjectives. It is a disaster, it is unfair, it is terrifying. These are judgments that trigger our fight or flight response, flooding our system with chemicals designed for survival, not for solving complex modern problems. An objective view uses the language of a simple report. A planned initiative has been halted. A conversation did not go as anticipated. A market condition has changed. These are statements of fact. They describe the territory without telling you how to feel about it. The emotional turbulence dies down because you have stopped feeding the storm. Suddenly, the actual problem comes into focus, and with it, the potential pathways forward. Let us apply this to a common personal experience. Imagine you have worked for months on a project, and it gets cancelled by leadership. The subjective, narrative-heavy view immediately declares, "This is a disaster that proves I am a failure. All that work was wasted. They do not value my contributions." This story is emotionally difficult. It pulls your attention inward into a spiral of self-criticism and frustration. It paralyzes action. Now apply objective representation. State the facts. A project I was leading has been cancelled due to a shift in company budget priorities. That is all. Notice what is absent. There is no label of disaster. No assumption about your personal worth. No mind reading of leadership's intentions. It is a clean, dry statement of what occurred. From this clear vantage point, your mind can begin to work productively. The question shifts from "why am I such a failure" to "what are my available options now?" You can assess what skills you developed during the project that are transferable. You can analyze the new budget priorities to understand where the organization is heading. You can communicate with your manager about next steps. The energy that was bound up in emotional distress is now freed for practical self-direction. The obstacle has not disappeared, but your relationship to it has fundamentally changed. You are no longer trapped inside the story of the obstacle. You are observing it from a place of clarity, which is the only position from which you can effectively navigate around it. This is the profound utility of cognitive detachment. It is not cold or uncaring. It is the ultimate form of self-care because it prevents you from adding unnecessary difficulty to an already challenging situation. The Stoic goal was to see things as they truly are, not worse than they are. Our judgments almost always make things seem worse, more personal, and more permanent than the facts support. Your challenge before we move to the next critical piece is to take this from theory to practice. Bring to mind one current worry, a simmering concern in your life. Now try to do what Marcus Aurelius did in his private journal. Write down or simply formulate in your mind a one-sentence, purely factual description of the situation. Strip out every value judgment, every adjective that implies good or bad, every assumption about what it means. Just the facts. That simple sentence is your first act of reclaiming clarity. It is the foundation upon which intelligent action is built. What do you truly want? Most of us want outcomes. We want the promotion, the perfect relationship, the financial security, the recognition. Stoics suggest we should want something entirely different, the right kind of effort. This is the discipline of desire, and it is perhaps the most liberating recalibration you can make for your own self-direction. The ancient Stoics performed a radical operation on the words good and bad. They declared that the only true good is an excellent character, living with virtue. The only true bad is a character that has lost its way, living without it. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, even life itself, they labeled as indifferent. Not meaningless, but not fundamentally good or bad. Their value depends entirely on how you use them. A virtuous person uses resources wisely. A person who has lost their compass might use them poorly. The resources themselves are neutral. This reframes everything. When your deepest desire is for an external outcome, you make yourself a hostage to fortune. You hand over your sense of worth and direction to forces you cannot control. The promotion depends on a manager's decision. The market dictates your portfolio's value. Another person's feelings determine your relationship state. Your motivation becomes fragile, rising and falling with every shift in circumstance. But when you align your primary desire with internal excellence, with acting wisely, courageously, justly, and with self-control, you tap into a source of motivation that is always within your reach. You cannot guarantee an outcome, but you can always guarantee the quality of your effort. The Roman Stoic Seneca captured this beautifully in his letters. He wrote about the folly of wishing for a comfortable voyage. The sea and the weather are not yours to command. Instead, he advised, wish to be a skilled sailor. Wish to have the courage, the knowledge, and the resilience to handle whatever conditions arise. Your desire is now pointed at something you can cultivate every single day, regardless of the external weather. This shift transforms your entire relationship to striving. The goal is no longer the distant finish line you may or may not reach. The goal becomes the person you become while running the race. Let us make this practical with a common pursuit, physical fitness. One approach is to desire a specific outcome, to want to reach a certain weight or to complete a marathon in a target time. These are clear targets, but they are external and fragile. An injury, a busy schedule, a simple plateau can make that desired outcome feel impossibly far away, draining your motivation entirely. The Stoic-aligned approach is different. Your primary desire shifts. You desire to act with discipline and respect for your body today. You desire to make the courageous choice to move when you are tired. You desire to practice the temperance to nourish yourself well. The number on the scale or the clock is now data, not the definition of your success. Your success is secured the moment you complete your workout with integrity. The outcome may still come, but it arrives as a byproduct of your consistent character, not as the sole object of your longing. This is unshakable motivation. A rainy day does not cancel your desire to be disciplined. It simply changes what that discipline looks like. So, bring this to your own life. Can you identify one goal, large or small, where you can experiment with this shift, where you can move your primary desire from the external outcome to the internal quality of your effort? Do not abandon the outcome, just change what you are fundamentally rooting for. Instead of wanting the successful sales pitch, want to be thoroughly prepared and authentically helpful. Instead of wanting a conflict-free day, want to respond to irritation with patience and clarity. This is how you build a self-directed life that is resilient to the whims of fortune. Your drive is no longer tied to what you get, but to who you are becoming in the process. And that is a desire no external circumstance can ever take from you. Stoicism is a philosophy of action, but its most powerful action looks inward first to align intention with principle. We have explored how to manage our impressions and redirect our desires. Now we arrive at the natural conclusion, the discipline of action itself. This is where thought management meets the world. It is the final, decisive step in practical self-direction. The Stoic insight here is both simple and profound. While you cannot control the harvest, you have absolute sovereignty over how you tend the field. Your actions and the intentions behind them are entirely within your sphere. Therefore, self-direction means pouring your finest effort into the work itself, performing your duties with integrity, simply because it is the right way to be in the world. Marcus Aurelius, who carried the immense weight of ruling an empire, constantly returned to this anchor. In his private writings, he would remind himself, waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one, do the work at hand as a human being and a citizen. For him, the action was not a means to glory or legacy. It was an end in itself. To act justly was to fulfill his nature. To act with courage was to express his purpose. The quality of the action was the entire point. The results, whether praise or criticism, victory or setback, were separate events to be accepted with the same clear-eyed detachment. This transforms action from a transaction where you expend energy for a guaranteed return into an expression of character. You are no longer working for the outcome. You are working because this is who you are. Consider the difficult conversation we all must sometimes have. Perhaps it is providing honest feedback to a team member or setting a boundary with a loved one. The undisciplined approach is to fixate on the outcome. You want them to agree with you, to thank you, to change their behavior immediately. Your anxiety skyrockets because you have attached your success to something outside your command. The Stoic discipline of action redirects your focus. Your task is to communicate with honesty and kindness. Your responsibility is to choose words that are clear yet respectful, to listen actively, and to state your position with integrity. That is your field to tend. Their reaction, their emotional state, their ultimate decision, that is their harvest. You can influence it, but you do not control it. When you perform your action well, you have already succeeded. You have acted as a person of good character. The conversation may go smoothly or it may be challenging, but your inner compass remains steady because you valued the integrity of your effort above the unpredictability of the response. This principle scales to every role you hold. As an employee, your disciplined action is to bring focus and skill to your projects. As a parent, it is to offer patience and guidance in the moment. As a citizen, it is to engage with your community thoughtfully. In each case, you release the burden of controlling how your work is received. You simply do the work, and you do it well for its own sake. This is not passivity, it is focused, liberated effort. Your energy is no longer diluted by the anxiety of outcomes. It is concentrated fully on the quality of your contribution. So bring this into your day with a single, deliberate experiment. Choose one ordinary task ahead of you. It could be drafting a report, preparing a meal, or even a routine commute. Your challenge is to perform that task with full attention and integrity, as if the action itself were the only goal. Do not rush through it to get to the next thing. Immerse yourself in the doing, notice the details, take pride in the care you apply. For those minutes, let the quality of your effort be its own reward. This small act is a direct rehearsal for a self-directed life. It trains your mind to find satisfaction in the process, to draw motivation from character rather than circumstance. When you can do this with a simple task, you build the muscle to do it with your most important work. The harvest will come in its own time, but your field will have been tended with excellence. For a moment, zoom out. See your life not from within your worries, but from the vantage point of the cosmos, or a century from now. This is not an escape from reality, but a return to a truer scale. The Stoics practiced a powerful mental exercise they called the view from above, and it is the ultimate tool for gaining the perspective necessary for clear direction. When you are lost in the dense forest of daily concerns, every fallen log feels like an impassable barrier. This exercise is the act of climbing the highest tree to see the entire landscape. You see the forest's true shape, the path you are on, and how small that single log actually is in the grand scheme of your journey. Marcus Aurelius was a master of this. In the quiet of his tent on military campaigns, he would deliberately pull his mind upward. He would contemplate the river of time, flowing long before him and continuing long after. He would reflect on the little space he occupied, a single point in the vastness of the empire, which itself was a speck in the cosmos. He was not diminishing his own life. He was clarifying it. By seeing his struggles against the backdrop of eternity, he could distinguish between what was truly significant and what was merely loud. This cosmic perspective is the antidote to myopia, the short-sightedness that makes a minor inconvenience feel like a major event. It shrinks smaller concerns down to their proper size, not by denying their existence, but by revealing their true proportion. How does this work in practice for self-direction? Let us take two common sources of drained energy. First, social anxiety. That awkward comment you made at a gathering, the one that replays in your mind at 3 in the morning. From within the worry, it feels huge, defining, a permanent mark on your social record. Now, apply the view from above. Picture the gathering from a balcony, seeing all the conversations as small, interconnected murmurs. Zoom out further to the city, the country, the planet spinning through space. That single comment is a vibration in an ocean of human interaction. In a week, no one will remember it. In a year, it will be a distant memory. This is not to say your feelings are invalid, but to show that the story you are telling yourself about lasting impact is a trick of perspective. The energy you are spending on that internal loop is energy you could be directing toward a genuine connection tomorrow. Second, consider a professional rivalry or a sense of being unfairly overlooked. From ground level, it feels like a central plot of your career narrative. It breeds distraction and wasted strategic thought. Now, take the cosmic view. See your industry as a whole, its history and its future. See your own working life as a single, meaningful chapter within a much longer human story of effort and innovation. From this altitude, that rivalry transforms. It becomes a minor subplot, a fleeting dynamic in the grand project of your contribution. This perspective does not tell you to be passive. It frees you to act from a place of principle rather than reaction. You can choose to focus on doing excellent work, building broader alliances, or simply outgrowing the situation entirely, because your sense of direction is now tied to a larger map. The true gift of this exercise is how it highlights our interconnectedness. From above, you see not isolated individuals, but a vast, living network. You see how your actions ripple, how your well-directed efforts contribute to the whole. This clarifies what truly matters for a meaningful life. Actions driven by vanity or fear look small from this height. Actions driven by kindness, creation, and honest contribution resonate on a larger scale. They are the choices that align with the vast, interconnected system you are a part of. Your turn to practice. Think of one current stressor, a frustration that feels heavy right now. Now, consciously pull your perspective back. Imagine looking at this situation from a distance of 10 years. How important will it seem from that future point? What details will have faded, and what lesson, if any, will remain? Then, if you can, zoom out further. See your street, your city, the continent from space. Hold that vast, silent image in your mind for just a few seconds, and then look back at your concern. Notice how its emotional weight has shifted. It has not vanished, but it has likely been placed in a much wider, calmer context. This space is where you can now choose your direction with greater wisdom, focusing your energy on the paths that truly matter in the long arc of a life well lived. What if worrying about failure is actually a sign you are unprepared? The Stoics had a drill for that. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of difficulties. This is not pessimism or inviting trouble. It is a structured form of mental preparation, a way to steady your mind and sharpen your capacity for self-direction when plans inevitably change course. The goal is not to dwell on what you fear, but to disarm it by walking through it in advance. The Roman Stoic Seneca was a strong advocate of this practice. He advised his readers to regularly consider in their minds the possibility of changed circumstances. His purpose was twofold. First, to cultivate a deep gratitude for the comforts and safety we currently enjoy, recognizing them as gifts, not guarantees. Second, and more crucially for practical action, to fortify the mind. By facing these possibilities in the safe space of imagination, we rob them of their terrifying novelty. We prove to ourselves that our character, our core self, can endure and find a way forward. When the mind has already surveyed the landscape of potential change, it is not shocked into paralysis. It recognizes the territory and can begin navigating immediately. This is the essence of building resilience, a system that grows stronger from experience. Your self-direction becomes resilient when you are not merely hoping for a smooth path, but are actively prepared to find your footing on a rough one. The practice transforms anxiety from a vague, haunting cloud into a series of specific, manageable situations you have already begun to consider. Take a common modern scenario, preparing for a crucial job interview. The typical approach is to focus solely on the ideal outcome, rehearsing perfect answers and visualizing success. This is valuable but incomplete. It leaves a hidden vulnerability. What happens when the ideal script falters? The Stoic drill would have you spend a portion of your preparation differently. Close your eyes and vividly imagine the video call freezing at a critical moment. See the pause, feel the initial flush of surprise. Now pre-decide your response. You will calmly state you are reconnecting, send a quick follow-up message, and carry on with poise when the link restores. Next, imagine being asked a question for which you have no prepared answer. Feel the momentary blankness, then choose your thoughtful action. You will take a breath, acknowledge the complexity of the question, and offer to think it through and provide a considered response later. Finally, imagine receiving a message days later that is not the one you hoped for. Sit with that feeling, and then decide your next move. You will thank them for their consideration, request any helpful feedback, and immediately review your list of other opportunities. By conducting these mental rehearsals, you accomplish something profound. You separate the external event, the technical glitch or the tough question, from your internal reaction. You have already practiced maintaining your composure and adhering to your principles. The worry about these obstacles loses its power because you have a plan. Your confidence no longer hinges on everything going perfectly. It is rooted in the knowledge that you can handle the unexpected with grace. This is how premeditatio malorum strengthens practical self-direction. It moves you from a passive hope that things will work out to an active readiness to make things work out, no matter what form the situation takes. Your path forward is no longer a single, fragile thread, but a web of potential routes you have already mapped in your mind. Your turn to apply this drill. Select one upcoming event in your life, something with a degree of uncertainty or importance. It could be a difficult conversation, a travel day, or a project deadline. Now give yourself just a few minutes of quiet focus. Mentally walk through two possible challenging scenarios, not the absolute worst cases, but the realistic hiccups that could occur. As you imagine each one, pause at the moment of friction. Then, ask yourself this critical question: how would I choose to respond in a way that aligns with my best self? What would a calm, resourceful, and principled version of me do next? That simple act of pre-decision is how you build an inner architecture of readiness, ensuring that when the world presents its inevitable tests, your direction comes from choice, not from chaos. The final step in thought management is not tolerance. It is gratitude for every single thing that happens. This is the ultimate frontier of Stoic practice, a concept called Amor Fati, the love of one's fate. It is the decision to not merely accept the unchangeable events of your life, but to embrace them, to welcome them as the essential raw material for your own development. This is not passive resignation, a quiet giving up. It is an active, creative collaboration with reality itself. The great German thinker Friedrich Nietzsche, who drew deeply from Stoic wisdom, championed this idea. He wrote that his formula for human greatness was Amor Fati, to want nothing to be different, not in the future, not in the past, not for all eternity. This is not about celebrating every challenge. It is about recognizing that every single event, especially the difficult ones, presents a unique and irreplaceable opportunity to practice a virtue, to strengthen your character in a way that comfort never could. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this acceptance. He would remind himself to welcome every event, even if it seemed harsh, because it was woven into the overall fabric of nature's will. For him, an obstacle was not a deviation from the path. It was the path. It was the very terrain on which the journey of virtue was meant to be walked. When you shift to this perspective, your relationship with difficulty transforms entirely. A career detour, an unexpected challenge, a personal conflict, these are no longer interruptions to your life plan. They become the new, fertile ground from which your life is now meant to grow. The plan was always an illusion of control. The reality is the ground beneath your feet, and Amor Fati is the decision to plant your flag right there and build something meaningful. Imagine a musician who dreams of performing but encounters a personal limitation that changes their approach. Resignation says, "My dream is over," and surrenders to disappointment. Simple acceptance says, "This is my reality now," and tries to carry on with a heavy heart. Amor Fati asks a different question entirely. It asks, what new form can my music take within these parameters? This reality invites the development of creativity, to explore composition instead of performance, to teach instead of tour, to find deeper layers of expression within limitation. The difficulty is not a wall blocking the old path. It is the compass pointing toward an undiscovered country where your strengths must adapt and grow. The musician learns to love the more resilient, inventive artist this journey reveals. Your life is filled with these pivot points, large and small. The project cancellation we discussed earlier is not just a professional setback. It is an invitation to practice the virtue of adaptability, to redirect your skills with agility. A strained relationship is not merely a source of tension. It is a gymnasium for practicing patience, for listening more deeply, or for cultivating the courage to speak difficult truths with compassion. Amor Fati reframes every event by asking, "What strength is this situation designed to reveal in me?" The obstacle becomes the training ground, so bring this radical idea down to earth. Look back over the last month and identify one difficulty you faced, something that felt like a frustration or a genuine challenge. Now, instead of assessing it by what it took from you, try to see it as a sculptor sees a block of marble. It is the raw material. Ask yourself this reflective question: what strength did this situation encourage me to develop? Did it demand more patience than I knew I had? Did it require a creativity I had neglected? Did it teach me a deeper form of compassion, either for myself or for others? This single question begins the alchemy of Amor Fati. It turns experience into insight. It transforms you from a participant in circumstance into an active participant in your own evolution, finding purpose not in spite of your fate, but woven directly into its very fabric. External events can feel like a siege. Your judgments, values, and choices are the fortress. Stoicism is the manual for its construction. This is the ultimate aim of everything we have explored so far, to build what the Stoics called an inner citadel, an inviolable space of mental sovereignty from which you direct your life, no matter the chaos unfolding outside the walls. This citadel is not a place of escape from reality, but a command center within it. Its walls are built from the disciplined practices of perception, desire, and action. Its strength is measured not by how calm you are on a quiet day, but by your equanimity and clear purpose when the storms of life are at their peak. Marcus Aurelius, who navigated constant political intrigue, military pressures, and personal transitions, wrote extensively about this inner retreat. He spoke of the ability to step into the little citadel within your own mind, a place of perfect quiet and order. In there, he said, you maintain your own peace, so long as you do not let the external chaos dictate your internal state. This is the essence of self-direction. It means your sense of who you are and what you must do is not held hostage by outside opinion, sudden misfortune, or the shifting moods of others. Your inner citadel is where you hold your principles, your core values, and your capacity to choose. From that secure position, you can look out at the events around you and decide with clarity how to respond. Consider a practical challenge in a workplace. A major project encounters a public setback, budgets are reduced, and rumors of changes begin to swirl. One person whose sense of security is entirely tied to external stability is immediately buffeted by the storm. They are swept up in the anxiety, spending their energy on speculation and worry. Their focus shatters, their productivity plummets, and their actions become reactive and fearful. They are outside the walls, caught in the turbulence. Another person who has been cultivating their inner citadel through daily practice experiences the same concerning events. They feel the initial jolt, the same surge of attention. But they have trained themselves to retreat inward to that place of quiet assessment. From within their citadel, they can observe the facts of the situation without being consumed by the collective fear. They ask different questions. What aspects of this are within my control right now? How can I act with integrity and professionalism today, regardless of uncertainty? What skills can I sharpen or demonstrate during this challenge? From that calm center, they can then take directed, principled action. They might update their portfolio, offer support to concerned colleagues, or focus with exceptional diligence on the work that remains. Their self-direction is intact because their command center is secure. Your inner citadel is built brick by brick through daily, often mundane, choices. It is the moment you pause before reacting to a provoking message. It is the decision to focus on your own effort rather than fixating on another's advantage. It is the practice of ending your day by reflecting not on what happened around you, but on how you chose to meet those events. Each of these acts adds another layer of stone to your walls, another measure of space between the external noise and your internal peace. So, what is one daily practice you can commit to that strengthens the walls of your inner citadel? It need not be grand. It could be a 5-minute morning meditation where you simply reaffirm what is within your control. It could be a nightly journal entry where you practice objective perspective on one event from your day. It could be the conscious decision to perform one small task with complete, undistracted excellence. Choose one brick and lay it today, then another tomorrow. Over time, you are not just managing your thoughts, you are fortifying a sanctuary. And from that unshakable place of sovereignty, you will find that directing your life becomes not a struggle against the world, but a purposeful expression from within it. The Stoics did not just think about philosophy, they built with it. Their primary tool was a simple yet profoundly powerful one, the journal. This was not a diary for recording events or venting emotions. It was the architect's blueprint and the engineer's daily report, a dedicated space for the active construction of thought and character. For them, writing was thinking made visible, a way to take the swirling chaos of internal impressions and forge them into clear, directed intention. This practice turns passive experience into active training, directly shaping your capacity for self-direction. Consider the most famous Stoic text of all, the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. It was never intended for publication. It was a private journal, a series of notes and reminders he wrote to himself, often during military campaigns. We are reading his personal mental workshop where he hammered out his principles, rehearsed his responses, and fortified his resolve. He was not creating literature, he was performing daily maintenance on his inner citadel. Seneca and Epictetus also championed this disciplined writing. They outlined specific, proactive prompts designed to engineer a better mind. The evening review was a quality control check. At day's end, you would examine your actions. Where did your judgment falter? When did a raw impression lead you astray? But crucially, you would also note where you acted with integrity, reinforcing what works. This is not about self-criticism, it is about calibration. The morning preparation was a pre-build meeting. You would anticipate the day's potential challenges and mentally rehearse meeting them with virtue, applying the premeditation of difficulties we discussed. Then there was the constant analysis of impressions, writing down troubling events to strip them to their objective core, and the writing out of key teachings to move them from abstract idea to living principle in your mind. This is proactive thought management in its purest form. The journal is the quiet space between stimulus and response, made permanent. It is where you slow down the automatic machinery of your mind to inspect and adjust its gears. Let us translate this into a simplified template you can use tonight. In the morning, ask just 2 questions. What potential challenges await today, and how will I choose to meet them with courage, justice, or patience? This sets your intention. In the evening, ask another 2. Where did I act well in alignment with my principles, and where did I stray, and what can I learn from that? This completes the feedback loop. The entire process takes only a few focused minutes, but its cumulative effect is the steady, deliberate engineering of your character. Your reflective prompt is to begin this architecture with a single brick. Tonight, before you finish your day, take a moment to write just 1 sentence in a notebook or even in the Notes app on your phone. Review 1 interaction you had today, any conversation that comes to mind. Now, write your sentence through the lens of the dichotomy of control. Simply state what was up to you in that moment, your intention, your tone, your effort, and acknowledge what was not, the other person's reaction or mood. This single act of sorting, of writing it down, transforms a passing memory into a deliberate lesson. It is you taking up the tools of the architect, beginning the daily work of building a mind directed from within. Self-direction is not always about adding more skills. Often, it is about having the courage to subtract the mental baggage that holds you back. We spend so much energy learning new techniques for productivity and planning, yet we rarely consider the sheer weight of the thoughts we carry that actively sabotage our focus before we even begin. The Stoics practiced a profound form of mental austerity, a deliberate clearing of the internal landscape so that what truly matters could stand out in sharp relief. This is the art of subtraction, and it is the final clarifying step in thought management. The principle is simple. Much of the noise in our minds, the constant background hum of anxiety and distraction, is generated by two sources. First, our opinions about things outside our control. Second, the opinions we imagine other people hold about us. Both are clutter. They are mental objects we have picked up and carried with us, weighing down our capacity for clear, directed action. Seneca, in his letters, constantly urged his friend Lucilius toward a simpler inner life. He observed that we experience more difficulty in imagination than in reality, that our fears are often phantoms we have invited to stay. He wrote of the freedom found in letting go of the endless pursuit of external validation and status, calling it a form of slavery to opinion. To subtract this clutter is not to become indifferent, but to become discerning. It is to stop furnishing your mind with every passing worry and borrowed judgment, and to curate only the thoughts that serve your purpose. Think of your mind as a workshop. For any meaningful project, you need a clean, organized bench. You need your tools laid out clearly and your materials within reach. But what if your bench was covered in old, broken tools, scraps from forgotten projects, and dust from disuse? Every time you tried to build something new, you would first have to clear a space, pushing aside the clutter just to begin. This is what happens when your mental workspace is filled with unresolved concerns about tomorrow, recycled conversations from yesterday, and anxious speculation about what someone might have meant. The energy you need for self-direction is consumed by the constant task of moving the clutter around. Subtraction is the act of sweeping the bench clean. Here is a practical exercise for a mental declutter. Take a sheet of paper and draw a line down the center. On the left, quickly jot down every recurring worry or distracting thought that has occupied your mind this week. The list might include things like my presentation next Tuesday, a passing comment from my neighbor, the future of my industry, what my parents think of my career path. Now apply the Stoic tool you have already learned. Go down your list and categorize each item by the dichotomy of control. Is this worry about something squarely within my power, my own effort and attitude? Or is it about an external outcome, another person's feelings, or an unpredictable event? Move each item to the appropriate column. The moment you place a worry in the external column, you have identified it as mental clutter. It is a tool you do not need on your bench for the work at hand. Your next step is the courageous act of subtraction. Consciously, deliberately choose to set it aside. You are not denying its existence. You are acknowledging that it does not belong in the space reserved for your purposeful action. You are taking it off the bench. This creates an immediate and palpable sense of cognitive space. The energy that was tied up in carrying that clutter is now freed. You can see your true tools, your intentions, and your principles with newfound clarity. Your directive energy is no longer diluted. So let us make this experiment personal. Identify one specific opinion you often worry about. It is that familiar whisper, what will they think? Perhaps it is, what will my manager think if I propose this new idea? Or what will my friends think if I change my lifestyle? For the next 24 hours, conduct a conscious experiment in subtraction. Each time that thought arises, acknowledge its presence and then consciously set it aside. Tell yourself, this is an external opinion. It belongs in the clutter column, not on my workbench. Then gently return your focus to the task directly in front of you, to the quality of your own effort. Notice what happens to your focus, to your energy, when you are no longer carrying that extra weight. You may find that the most powerful step toward directing your life is not a step forward at all, but a simple, deliberate act of letting go. If you knew this week was your last, what would you stop doing immediately? What would you start? That question, stark as it is, contains a hidden power source for self-direction. The Stoics practiced a principle known as Memento Mori, a Latin phrase meaning remember you must transition. This is often misunderstood as a dark or morbid fixation. In truth, it is the opposite. It is a call to vitality, the ultimate focusing agent that infuses our daily choices with urgent meaning and clear prioritization. Awareness of life's natural limit does not invite despair. It strips away the trivial, the procrastination, and the petty grievances that clutter our days, revealing the solid ground of what truly matters beneath our feet. Marcus Aurelius, in the quiet of his own mind, returned to this remembrance constantly. He did not dwell on the horizon with fear, but used it as a lens to examine the present. He wrote to himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." For him, the awareness of a closing chapter was not a threat, it was a tool for immediate clarity. It forced the question, is what I am doing right now worthy of my limited and precious time? This practice transforms urgency from a source of anxiety into a source of direction. Seneca echoed this with powerful clarity. He taught that we must prepare for our final day in order to truly begin living. To him, putting affairs in order and living with intention was not about an ending, but about making the middle of the story count. He observed that we are all moving forward every day, a little at a time, and that the person who has truly prepared for their final moment is the one most free to live fully in all the moments leading up to it. Contrast two ways of approaching an ordinary Tuesday. The first is lived with a vague, unexamined sense of forever. There is always tomorrow to have that meaningful conversation, to start that project, to apologize, to create. This mindset invites delay. It allows hours to be frittered away on distractions that feel urgent but are ultimately unimportant, because the horizon seems endlessly far away. Now imagine the same Tuesday approached with a conscious, gentle awareness of its preciousness. This does not mean a frantic, bucket list frenzy. It means a deep, calm prioritization. That difficult phone call you have been avoiding moves to the top of the list because you see the cost of leaving important words unsaid. The hour you might have spent scrolling is quietly reclaimed for a walk with someone you care about, or for working on a single paragraph of that book you want to write. The petty annoyance with a coworker loses its grip because you choose not to spend your limited currency of attention on it. The day becomes more deliberate, more meaningful, precisely because you see it as a finite resource to be invested, not an infinite supply to be wasted. This remembrance is the ultimate tool for cutting through indecision. When faced with a choice between two paths, the question of Memento Mori provides profound guidance. Which path aligns more closely with the person you aspire to be? Which choice builds a legacy of action you will be proud to leave behind? It is not about grand, world-changing deeds, but about the quality of your character in the small, daily interactions. It is about choosing patience over irritation, courage over comfort, and contribution over consumption, because you understand these are the threads from which a meaningful life is woven. Your reflective prompt and a practical way to direct your tomorrow is to plan with this lens. As you think about your coming day, ask yourself one simple, focusing question. If this were my last day, would I be proud of how I spent it? Let that question quietly sort your priorities. It will not tell you to quit your job or make dramatic gestures. It will, however, likely point you toward the conversation that needs to happen, the work that deserves your full presence, the moment of quiet appreciation you have been postponing. It turns the abstract concept of a well-lived life into a concrete blueprint for the next 24 hours. This is how remembering an ending becomes the very practice that shapes a life of purpose starting now. You do not have to face difficult choices alone. The Stoics built a mental council of the wisest and most courageous people who ever lived. They practiced a powerful form of mentorship from a distance, consciously selecting role models whose character they could study, emulate, and ultimately invoke in moments of uncertainty. This was not about blind hero worship. It was about internalizing a living standard of excellence, creating an inner advisory board you could consult at any time. Seneca wrote extensively about this practice. He advised his friend Lucilius to choose a model of living, someone whose words and actions you admire, and to keep them before your eyes as if they were watching over you. The goal was to have a guardian and a teacher present in thought. Then in any situation you could ask a simple and clarifying question: what would they do? This question bypasses our own fleeting emotions and immediate fears, connecting us directly to a higher principle embodied by another person. Think of it as building a personal pantheon of exemplars, each representing a virtue you wish to cultivate. For courage in defense of principle, a Stoic might contemplate Cato the Younger, who chose a final act of personal sovereignty rather than live under a rule he believed was unjust. For unwavering integrity and calm in the face of criticism, they would reflect on Socrates, who met his fate with grace after being sentenced by his own city. For duty and resilience, they would look to Marcus Aurelius himself, who shouldered the immense burden of empire while constantly refining his own character. By regularly studying their stories and contemplating their choices, these figures cease to be distant historical names. They become internalized voices of conscience, a chorus of wisdom you carry within. The practical application is direct and personal. You begin by selecting a specific virtue you feel is needed in your current life. Perhaps it is the courage for honest communication, or the patience to listen deeply, or the integrity to do meticulous work even when no one is watching. Then you choose an exemplar for that virtue. It can be a historical figure like those mentioned, or a personal guide, a grandparent, a teacher, a community leader whose character you witnessed firsthand. The key is that their life demonstrated the quality you seek. Now, bring this to a real challenge. Imagine you need to have a difficult conversation where honesty feels risky. Before you enter that room, take a quiet minute. Bring your chosen exemplar to mind. If it is Socrates, ask yourself how he would seek truth here with both courage and humility. How would he question his own assumptions while speaking clearly? If it is a personal role model known for their kindness and firmness, visualize how they would sit, listen, and respond. This mental rehearsal does not provide a script, it provides a compass. It aligns your intention with a standard you have already deemed worthy. In the moment of choice, that internalized presence can steady your hand and clarify your words. Your reflective prompt is to build one seat on your own inner council. Identify one person, real or historical, whose character you genuinely admire. It does not have to be a philosopher. It could be an artist known for their discipline, a scientist known for their curiosity, or a family member known for their quiet strength. Now consider one current and modest challenge you are facing. It might be a moment of procrastination, a small interpersonal friction, or a creative block. Spend a few moments considering that situation through their imagined perspective. How would they approach it? What quality would they bring to bear? This simple act of mental borrowing begins the process of internalization, turning admiration into a practical tool for your own self-direction. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That line from Marcus Aurelius is more than a clever turn of phrase. It is a declaration of a fundamental truth about how reality works, and a manual for turning every form of resistance into your greatest asset. This is the active, creative core of Amor Fati. It is the mindset of an alchemist looking at a block of lead, a substance others see as worthless or obstructive, and seeing within it the latent potential for gold. A blocked path is not a stop sign. It is an invitation to find a new path, to develop a new skill, or to demonstrate a level of resilience you did not know you possessed. This is proactive self-direction in its purest form, where you stop seeing obstacles as external forces opposing you and start recognizing them as the very terrain you were meant to cross. Marcus Aurelius constantly drilled this perspective into his own thinking. He would remind himself that our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions or our dispositions. The obstacle itself, he taught, becomes a source of advantage because the thing that confronts you, the difficulty that arises, forces a choice. You can let it define your story, or you can let it refine your character and sharpen your ingenuity. The obstacle, in its stubborn presence, demands that you become more than you were before you met it. It becomes the way by forcing you to grow into the person capable of walking it. History offers profound examples of this alchemy in action. Consider Admiral James Stockdale, an American pilot who was held for over 7 years during a period of intense conflict. His environment was one of absolute limitation, a place of immense challenge for the human spirit. Yet Stockdale, a student of Stoic philosophy, did not see it only as a confinement. He later described it as a laboratory, the ultimate testing ground for everything Epictetus had taught him. The obstacle of that situation became his way to practice courage, to maintain integrity under extreme pressure, and to provide quiet leadership to others. He used the very barriers meant to limit him as the raw material to forge an unbreakable inner freedom. His survival and return were not in spite of the obstacle, but because of how he chose to relate to it. He walked the path it laid before him. In our modern lives, the obstacles are different, but the principle holds the same transformative power. Imagine a small team working on an innovative product, only to have their budget slashed dramatically. The immediate reaction might be disappointment, seeing the financial constraint as an end for the project. But a team trained in this mindset would pause and ask a different question. This constraint is now part of our reality. How does it force us to be more creative, more efficient, more clever? Often, the most elegant and user-friendly designs emerge from such limitations. The budget block does not halt action. It advances it by demanding smarter action. It forces the team to strip the idea down to its essential, brilliant core, often resulting in a better final product than unlimited resources would have created. The obstacle of scarcity becomes the way to true innovation. Your own life is filled with these raw materials waiting to be transformed. So, bring this from philosophy to practice with a direct and personal question. Identify one current obstacle in your path. It might be a logistical problem, a skill gap, a resource shortage, or an interpersonal difficulty. Now, look at that specific block and ask yourself this. How can this very thing become the material for my next step forward? If it is a skill gap, the obstacle is the way to a dedicated learning journey that makes you more valuable. If it is a stubborn person, the obstacle is the way to practice profound patience and diplomatic communication. If it is a setback, the obstacle is the way to gather invaluable insight about what does not work, refining your approach with precision. Do not just accept the obstacle, interrogate it. What is it demanding that I develop? What new route is it revealing that I was too comfortable to see before? This is how you stop fighting your circumstances and start collaborating with them, using every piece of resistance as the friction that propels you forward on a wiser, stronger path. Between what happens to you and your response, there is a space. In that space lies your freedom and your power to choose your direction. That gap, however narrow it may seem in the heat of the moment, is the sacred ground where all self-directed action is born. This is the micro-practice of your guiding principle, not as a grand philosophical concept, but as a tangible, breath-sized skill you can use right now. It is the conscious insertion of a pause, a deliberate hesitation between the trigger and your reaction, where you reclaim sovereignty over your next move. Think of it as the emergency brake for your automatic mind. Something happens, a stimulus. Your neurological machinery, built for survival, instantly produces a first impression, a judgment laced with emotion. This is the critical junction. Without training, we simply agree with that judgment and launch into a reaction. We become passengers in our own behavior. The practice is to place a single, deliberate moment of awareness at that exact point. In that pause, you exercise your inner faculty. You step back from the initial story and ask, is this impression true? Is it helpful? Is it the whole story? This tiny space is the cockpit from which you pilot your life. It is taught that we are disturbed not by events but by our judgments about them. That famous line implies this intermediary step. The event is neutral, the judgment is automatic, but the choice to accept or reject that judgment, that is yours. The pause is where that choice lives. Let us map this sequence with a common trigger, a critical comment from a colleague about your work. The trigger is their spoken words. The initial impression floods in instantly, a mix of strong feeling, defensiveness, and perhaps a spike of insecurity. The narrative forms immediately. They are trying to undermine me, or my work is not good enough. Without a pause, you are now on that track. You might fire back a sharp retort, shut down emotionally, or spend the next hour distracted, your focus and energy completely redirected. Now, insert the pause, the comment lands. You feel the physiological jolt, the story beginning to unfold. But instead of being carried by it, you activate your inner observer. You take one conscious breath. In that brief space, you create distance from the initial impression. You can now reassess, is this critique entirely without merit? Could there be a sliver of useful feedback wrapped in a poor delivery? Is this person having a difficult day? You are not denying your feeling. You are simply refusing to let it dictate your behavior. From this comma center, you can now choose a response. You might say, I would like to understand your perspective better. Can we discuss the specifics? Or you might internally set the comment aside as unconstructive and calmly return to your task, having decided it does not deserve your emotional energy. The outcome is now a product of choice, not a reflex. Your power to direct your life accumulates in these micro moments, not in grand, sweeping declarations. The pause is the fundamental unit of self-command. It is how a frustrating traffic jam becomes 10 minutes of listening to an audiobook rather than a tense start to your day. It is how a child's challenging moment becomes an opportunity to model patience rather than a trigger for your own reaction. Each time you successfully insert that space, you strengthen the neural pathway of choice, making it the default route, not the difficult detour. Your practice for today is deliberately small, designed to build this muscle without pressure. Choose one minor annoyance you encounter. It could be a slow-moving line, a misplaced item, or an inconsiderate driver at a distance. When you feel the familiar surge of irritation, your task is not to suppress it, but to consciously create a gap before any reaction. Internally count to 3. 1, 2, 3. In that brief window, simply notice the feeling without feeding it. Then, and only then, proceed. You may still need to act, but your action will now come from a place of slight detachment, of chosen response rather than raw reaction. This is how you begin to live in that space of freedom, turning the theoretical cockpit into your operational headquarters for a self-directed life. Stoic self-direction is not selfish direction. It is understanding that to steer your own life well, you must see yourself as a vital part of a larger ship, humanity. This is the principle of Sympatheia, the Stoic concept of interconnectedness. It is the profound recognition that we are not isolated captains navigating private seas, but crew members whose individual choices affect the entire vessel's course. To direct yourself wisely, therefore, means to align your personal rudder with the well-being of the whole journey. This expands the very definition of self-direction from a solitary pursuit into a purposeful contribution. Your autonomy finds its highest expression not in independence from others, but in interdependence with them. Marcus Aurelius returned to this idea constantly in his private writings. He reminded himself that we are social beings by nature, born for cooperation. He used the beautiful analogy of the human body. Just as the feet and the hands do not work against each other but for the common function of the whole person, so too must we, as individuals, work for the common function of humanity. Your personal direction, when aligned with virtue, naturally becomes a force that supports and strengthens the network you are a part of. This is why the Stoic virtues of justice and kindness are not optional extras for a good life. They are the operational manual for a being whose nature is social. Directing yourself virtuously is, by definition, directing yourself in a way that considers the whole. Let us make this shift from theory to practical motivation. Consider two people pursuing the same career goal, say, becoming a skilled software developer. The first frames their direction solely around personal gain, the salary, the prestige, the individual achievement. This motivation can be powerful, but it is also fragile. When challenges arise, when the work feels tedious, the only question sustaining them is, what is in this for me? That fuel can burn out quickly. The second developer learns the principle of Sympatheia. They begin to frame their direction differently. They see their skill development as a way to build tools that solve real problems for people, to create applications that make a colleague's job easier, or to contribute to open-source projects that strengthen the entire digital community. Their direction is now tied to a web of connection. The tedious line of code is no longer just a step to a paycheck. It is a brick in a bridge they are building for others. This provides a deeper, more durable wellspring of motivation. It offers ethical clarity in moments of choice, guiding them toward work that serves rather than exploits. Their self-direction is now anchored in something larger than themselves, which makes it far more resilient to the storms of discouragement or competition. This reframing applies to every role you hold. A parent directing their energy is not just managing a household, they are nurturing the next generation of the community. A neighbor performing a small act of kindness is not just being nice, they are reinforcing the social fabric that supports everyone, including themselves. Even solitary work like writing or creating art, when done with an intention to share insight or beauty, becomes an act of contribution to the collective human experience. Your personal journey gains meaning because it is now part of a shared story. So, bring this to your own life with a simple, reflective question. In your current projects or roles, how can you slightly reframe your actions to more consciously benefit your immediate community? Look at the task directly in front of you today. Can you see it as a service, however small, to your team, your family, your customers, or your circle of friends? This is not about grand philanthropy, but about infusing your daily direction with an awareness of connection. When you do this, you are not losing your autonomy. You are fulfilling it by directing your unique capacities toward the purpose for which they were naturally designed, to be a constructive part of the whole. An athlete does not wait for the game to get in shape. A Stoic does not wait for crisis to build resilience. They train voluntarily. This is the philosophy behind a seemingly counterintuitive practice, the deliberate choice of temporary hardship. It is not about seeking pain, but about proving a point to your own mind. By willingly stepping into minor discomfort, you inoculate yourself against the fear of future difficulty. You demonstrate in a controlled experiment that your core stability does not require perfect external conditions. This is voluntary toughness, and it is one of the most direct ways to forge the inner independence necessary for self-direction. The Stoics saw this as essential maintenance for the mind. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, would regularly practice what he called a period of simplicity. He would dress in plain clothes, sleep on a firm bed, and eat only the most basic food for several days at a time. His goal was not self-punishment. It was a deliberate exercise in appreciation and fear reduction. He wrote that by doing this, he was rehearsing for a potential future, reminding himself that a good life was possible even without luxury. More importantly, he was proving to himself that his happiness was not held hostage by his possessions. He was strengthening his fundamental independence from externals, so that if circumstances changed, his character would remain unshaken. This practice shatters the illusion that comfort is a prerequisite for capability. It builds the confidence that you can handle more than you think, which is the bedrock of taking directed action under real pressure. Think of it as stress inoculation, like a vaccine for the mind. A vaccine introduces a tiny, manageable piece of a challenge so the system learns to recognize and overcome it. Voluntary discomfort does the same for your resilience. You are introducing a small, controlled dose of challenge so your psychological strength learns it can cope. The cold shower is not about the cold. It is about the 3 seconds of mental negotiation where every instinct says to turn the knob and you choose not to. It is a daily, physical vote for the power of your will over your immediate impulse. Skipping a meal is not about hunger. It is about observing the sensation without being ruled by it, discovering that the feeling passes and your focus can remain intact. Spending a day without digital entertainment is not a judgment on technology. It is an audit of your attention, revealing where your mind naturally goes when it is not being pulled by an endless stream of content. The value is entirely in the mental discipline, not the act itself. The act is just the gym equipment. The real workout is happening in your perception and your judgment. When you voluntarily choose the harder option, you are actively rewriting a subconscious story. The story that says you need perfect quiet to focus, perfect comfort to create, or perfect conditions to be productive. You replace it with a new, more empowering narrative. I can focus even with minor discomfort. I can act even without my usual supports. My direction comes from within. So your challenge is to design one small experiment in voluntary toughness this week. Choose something minor, safe, and temporary. It could be taking a 30-second cool blast at the end of your shower. It could be skipping your usual afternoon snack and simply noticing the sensations that arise. It could be leaving your phone in another room for one evening. The scale is irrelevant. The intention is everything. As you do it, pay close attention not to the discomfort but to your relationship with it. Observe the moment you want to quit and then choose to continue for just a few seconds more. That is where the training occurs. That is where you gather direct, personal evidence that your strength is greater than your circumstance. This evidence becomes a quiet confidence you carry into your larger decisions, a proven resilience that allows you to direct your life from a place of true independence. How do you give 100% to a goal without being shattered if it falls short? The Stoics had a 2-word mental clause that makes it possible. It is called the reserve clause, and it is the ultimate approach for engaged yet flexible investment. This is not a lack of commitment. It is the disciplined practice of adding a silent, internal phrase to every endeavor, circumstances permitting. You plan with precision, you act with excellence, and you invest your full effort, while simultaneously holding in your heart the understanding that the final result depends on 1,000 factors beyond your direct will. This single mental shift separates your sense of worth from the outcome, protecting you from frustration and freeing you to adapt with grace when situations change. The classic Stoic analogy is the archer. A skilled archer does everything within their power. They select the finest bow, they train their body for strength and stability, they study the wind, they take careful aim, and they release the arrow with perfect form. Their entire goal, their entire sphere of control, ends at the fingertips. What happens next, whether the arrow hits the mark or is deflected by a sudden gust, is not part of their art. The archer who ties their happiness solely to the arrow striking the target is setting themselves up for distress. The Stoic archer finds their satisfaction in the quality of the shot. They did their part with excellence, the rest is for circumstance to decide. This is the essence of the reserve clause. It allows for total commitment to the process with a healthy perspective on the unpredictable result. Let us apply this to launching a creative project, perhaps writing a book or sharing a piece of music with the world. Your directed action is everything within your control. You commit to a consistent writing schedule. You revise each chapter with meticulous care. You seek thoughtful feedback and polish your work. You handle the logistical details with diligence. This is where you pour 100% of your effort. The reserve clause is the quiet understanding you hold alongside that effort. It is the internal acknowledgement that public reception and critical reviews belong to the realm of things not entirely up to you. You cannot control the market's mood, the pathways of discovery, or the subjective taste of every reader. By holding this clause in mind, you accomplish something profound. You maintain your motivation and peace throughout the long and uncertain process. If the project meets with immediate success, you receive it with gratitude, not with a desperate gasp of relief. If it finds a slower path or a different audience than you envisioned, you are not broken. You simply observe the result as information, and from your place of balanced investment, you can clearly decide your next thoughtful action. Perhaps it is to begin the next project informed by what you learned. The reserve clause prevented you from staking your entire identity on a single external outcome. Your reflective prompt is to make this practice personal and immediate. Bring to mind one current goal you are working toward, something where the result feels important and somewhat uncertain. Now formulate your intention with the Stoic reserve clause. Say it to yourself, either aloud or in your mind with clarity. I will strive to achieve this, circumstances permitting. Feel the difference that simple phrase creates. It does not diminish your effort. It focuses it by directing your energy entirely on the quality of your actions, while humbly acknowledging the vast and beautiful complexity of the world in which those actions unfold. This is how you direct your life with both fierce intention and profound peace. Your internal commentator never takes a lunch break. This voice narrates your every move, interprets every situation, and considers possible outcomes. Its tone is the single greatest influence on your emotional state and your readiness to act. Thought management, at its most intimate level, is the practice of noticing this broadcast and, if necessary, choosing a different station. You get to decide if your inner voice is a harsh critic, a worried alarmist, or a wise and steady coach. This is the management of your internal guide, and choosing the right one is a direct act of self-direction. Steady self-talk is not about empty positivity. It is about moving from judgment to helpful instruction. The critic and the alarmist deal in absolute statements and emotional predictions. This is a disaster. I always mess up. They will all think I am not capable. This kind of internal conversation creates a climate of worry and drains the energy needed for clear action. The steady coach, by contrast, deals in observable facts and constructive next steps. This is a challenging situation. I made an error in that process. My colleague seems frustrated. These are statements, not final verdicts. They describe the landscape without declaring it impossible to cross. The teacher Epictetus modeled this perfectly in his discussions. He often wrote as a firm but caring instructor, correcting a student's unhelpful internal logic. When a student would be upset by an external event, Epictetus would not simply agree with the feeling. He would question the underlying belief that caused it. You are disturbed not because the event happened, but because you believe it should not have happened. His corrective dialogue was designed to retrain the student's inner voice to ask better questions. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" the steady inner coach asks, "What is the wise thing to do within this new reality?" This shifts the entire focus from feeling powerless toward empowered action. Listen to the difference in two internal monologues after the same professional mistake. The catastrophic critic says, "I am a failure. This proves I cannot handle this role. My manager will lose all trust in me. This story is emotionally difficult and paralyzing." It offers no way forward, only blame. Now hear the steady coach. "I made an error in the report on page 3. That is the fact. What can I learn from this oversight to improve my system?" The immediate next step is to inform my manager, present the correction, and outline my plan to prevent it going forward. This internal dialogue acknowledges the mistake without tying your whole identity to it. It is factual, compassionate in its lack of self-criticism, and immediately oriented toward constructive action, pointing toward responsibility, honesty, and improvement. It turns a moment of potential setback into a moment of directed action. Your self-talk is the steering mechanism for your behavior. A voice speaking only of failure steers you toward avoidance. A voice calmly assessing a situation steers you toward solution and learning. The content of your inner world directly shapes the story of your outer life. Your reflective practice is to become a quiet observer of your own broadcast. For the next hour, as you go about your tasks, simply notice the tone and content of your internal commentary. Do not try to change it yet, just listen. Is it a critic, an alarmist, or a coach? Is it speaking in absolutes or in facts? Is it asking worried questions or strategic ones? This hour of observation is the first and most important step in choosing the inner voice that truly serves your direction. You cannot manage a channel you are not even aware is playing. We navigate by stars we cannot reach. The Stoic sage is that star, a perfect model of rationality and virtue, guiding us toward better choices. This figure, often mentioned in the writings, is not presented as a historical person you could have met. It is a conceptual ideal, a thought experiment in human excellence. The sage represents the full and flawless expression of reason, someone whose every judgment is clear, whose every action aligns perfectly with virtue, and whose inner peace is unshakable. No Stoic philosopher claimed to be this sage. In fact, they openly stated that such a person might be as rare as a mythical bird of legend. So why contemplate an ideal you can never fully become? For the same reason an archer aims at a target, your arrow may not always hit the exact center, but aiming at the center is what makes your shot accurate. The sage is the bullseye for your character. By asking what perfect wisdom and virtue would dictate here, you elevate your thinking above the immediate pull of your biases, your fears, and your convenient justifications. You create a North Star for your own judgment. The Stoics used this figure as a constant measuring stick. Epictetus taught his students to hold this standard before their eyes. He said that in every situation you should consider what the person of perfect judgment would do, and then command yourself to do the same. The transformative power is not in achieving the impossible standard, but in the sincere effort to reach for it. The very act of asking the question stretches your moral and rational capacity. It pulls you out of the fog of your own rationalizations and into the clearer air of principle. Your self-direction gains a higher quality of guidance, one less swayed by momentary emotion or social pressure. Let us apply this to a common modern dilemma of honesty. Imagine you are asked for your opinion on a colleague's new project, a project you believe is fundamentally flawed. The easy, socially comfortable path is to offer a vague encouragement. You might rationalize it as being kind or avoiding conflict, but now apply the sage test. Pause and ask, what would a person of perfect integrity and wisdom do in this exact situation? The ideal is not a rude critic nor a dishonest supporter. The sage, embodying both courage and justice, would find a way to offer constructive, truthful feedback delivered with kindness and respect. The sage would see that true kindness is not in protecting someone from a difficult truth, but in helping them confront it with support. This clarifying question cuts through your personal discomfort and points toward a more virtuous and ultimately more helpful course of action. It directs you to find the words that are both honest and compassionate. This exercise works for any moment of indecision where your lower impulses and your higher principles are in conflict. Facing a temptation to cut corners on a responsibility, ask what perfect integrity would do. Feeling the pull of a minor grievance, ask what perfect generosity of spirit would do. The answer that arises may not be easy, but it will be clear. It will point toward the action that builds rather than diminishes your character. Your reflective prompt is to bring this star into your own sky. Identify one current indecision, a choice where you feel pulled in two directions. It might be a professional question of ethics, a personal commitment you are wavering on, or even how to spend your free time this evening. Now, give yourself the space to apply the SAGE test. Ask yourself, not what is easiest or most immediately gratifying, but what would a being of perfect reason and virtue choose to do in this precise circumstance? Listen quietly for the answer that aligns with courage, justice, wisdom, and self-control. That answer is your North Star, the truest direction for your next step. When plans unravel, it is easy to feel the universe is against you. Stoics proposed the opposite, that you are part of a coherent system. They saw the cosmos not as a chaotic accident, but as a single living entity guided by a rational principle they called the logos. This was the source of order, a connective intelligence weaving every event and every season into a unified whole. To trust this process was a philosophical acceptance of a fundamental law. Nature in its vast complexity operates with a coherent logic, even when that logic is not clear from our limited point of view. Our worry often spikes when we see random misfortune as a personal sign that the world is unfair. The Stoic shift is to see it as simply nature being nature. A storm is not malicious, it is meteorological. A setback is not a conspiracy, it is a confluence of causes and effects. This acceptance is a form of strategic surrender to reality as it is, which frees up energy for clear and thoughtful action. You stop exhausting yourself by arguing with the weather and start learning how to sail in it. Marcus Aurelius returned to this trust constantly. He wrote to himself that whatever happens has always happened and will always happen and is happening at this moment everywhere. He saw his life as a single thread in a vast tapestry, woven according to a pattern he could not fully see but could choose to trust. He reminded himself to accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs. This was not passive surrender. It was the active recognition that the obstacle itself was not an error in the universe's code. It was a feature of the terrain. Your job was not to rewrite the terrain but to navigate it with skill. When you internalize this, your relationship with difficulty transforms. The question shifts from "why is this happening to me?" to "given that this is happening, how shall I proceed?" Picture a sailor on the open sea. The sailor holds no illusion of commanding the wind or the currents. These are the external events, the laws of nature in motion. To rage against a headwind is futile. It expends breath and breeds despair. The skilled sailor, however, studies these natural forces. They learn to read the sky and understand seasonal patterns. This knowledge is their trust in the process. They know the sea has its logic even when that logic brings a squall. Their entire focus then goes to the one thing they truly command, adjusting the sails and steering the rudder. Their calm persistence comes from trusting the nature of the sea while taking full responsibility for their own seamanship. Your life is that vessel. The winds of circumstance are not yours to command, but you can learn their nature. You can observe that stress often follows overcommitment, that conflict arises from miscommunication, that growth requires periods of discomfort. These are the patterns of your human ecosystem. Trusting the process means accepting these patterns as the system within which you must work. It means when a gale arrives, you do not waste energy blaming the sky. You steady yourself and steer into it as best you can. So take this from the cosmic scale down to your kitchen table. Identify one current frustration, a situation that feels like a snag in your plans. Before you react, practice the phrase of strategic surrender. Say to yourself quietly and firmly, "This too is part of the process." Let that statement breathe for a moment. It does not mean you like the situation. It means you acknowledge its reality as a piece of the larger logical whole. From that settled acceptance, ask your next question. If this wind is now blowing, how shall I adjust my sails? What single small adjustment can I make right now to steer my effort with more skill? This is how trusting the logos becomes the most practical thing you can do. It turns resistance into a navigational challenge, and in that shift you find both your calm and your true direction. How many of your choices are secretly made for an audience? Stoicism offers freedom from the exhausting performance of life. This is the specific external good we must target, the addiction to social approval. Every time you alter your behavior, suppress your opinion, or choose a path primarily to win praise or avoid blame, you are handing the reins of your self-direction over to the most fickle of masters, the opinions of other people. You make yourself a marionette, waiting for someone else to pull the strings of your motivation and your sense of worth. The Stoic alternative is not to become a hermit, but to find a deeper, more reliable source of satisfaction. It is the profound contentment that comes from knowing you acted with integrity, that you did the right thing as you understand it, even if your actions are met with criticism or complete indifference. This knowledge becomes your fuel, creating an authentic and independent momentum that no crowd's applause can ever match or break. Epictetus, with his characteristic directness, cuts to the heart of this liberation. He advised, if you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or foolish in extraneous matters. His point was profoundly practical. The path to genuine growth requires letting go of your image in areas that do not matter to your core character. If you are learning a new skill, you must be willing to look like a beginner. If you are standing by an unpopular principle, you must be willing to be seen as difficult. The moment you prioritize how you appear over what you are actually doing, you have traded your progress for a performance. Your direction is no longer your own. Consider two motivations for a single modern act, sharing something creative online. The first is driven entirely by the external good of approval. You craft a post, a piece of art, or a video with the primary goal of generating likes, shares, and positive comments. Your emotional state becomes tied directly to the platform's response. A high number of engagements brings a fleeting high, a low number brings doubt and dejection. Your creative compass is pointed outward, constantly recalibrating to catch the next trend or please an invisible jury. Your self-direction is outsourced. The second approach is driven by an internal standard. You create and share something because you believe it has meaning, because it expresses a truth you care about, or because the act of creation itself fulfills you. You still share it, engaging with the world, but your primary satisfaction is sealed the moment you complete the work to your own standard of excellence. The public reception becomes interesting data, not your report card. Praise is enjoyed but not needed. Criticism is considered but not devastating. Your creative compass remains firmly fixed on your own true north, allowing you to navigate the noisy waters of public opinion without being capsized by every wave. This shift reclaims an enormous amount of energy. The mental space once consumed by scanning for social cues, crafting a persona, and managing impressions is now available for the work itself, for deeper thought, and for more genuine connection. You stop living in a reactive loop and start living from a proactive core. Your challenge is to make this principle tangible through a single, quiet act of independence. This week, commit to one action that aligns squarely with your values, but that you fully expect will receive zero external praise. It could be a work task you complete with meticulous care, knowing only you will see the depth of that effort. It could be a private act of kindness you perform without any possibility of acknowledgement. It could be dedicating an hour to a personal project you have no intention of sharing. The goal is to practice finding the reward entirely in the integrity of the action itself, to feel the quiet pulse of self-directed momentum that begins when you stop performing for a crowd that was never really watching you the way you imagined. Your mind has a bandwidth. Every tweet, notification, and headline is a request for your attention and emotional energy. Are you granting assent blindly? In the ancient public square, the challenge was the shouting crowd and the passing rumor. Today, it is a silent and endless scroll. The Stoic discipline of assent, that critical pause between impression and judgment, is now your most vital skill for navigating the digital world. Information consumption is no longer passive. It is an active series of judgments. Each time you open an app or a news site, you are presented with countless impressions, each designed to trigger a reaction, a feeling of urgency, or a sudden emotion. To grant assent is to accept that impression's emotional charge as truth, to let it set up camp in your mind and redirect your inner resources. The modern world runs on the economy of your attention. Every click is a transaction where you trade your clarity for a burst of stimulation. Seneca's warning to avoid the crowd finds its perfect modern parallel. He wrote that we must be careful about the company we keep because we will inevitably adopt their habits. Your digital company is not just people, it is systems designed to amplify certain kinds of content. To spend your day mentally wandering through a digital crowd is to invite its pace and its tone into your own psyche. The discipline is to become a thoughtful curator of your own input. This is not about ignoring the world. It is about choosing how and when you will engage with it, so that your engagement comes from a place of principle, not from a reflex. Consider the practical filter of a designated news check. Instead of allowing headlines to reach you throughout the day, prompting cycles of concern, you decide to review a trusted source once in the morning and once in the evening. In that act, you are practicing the discipline of assent. You are saying, I will not grant importance to every alert. I will collect the information and then, from a calm center, judge what merits my consideration. You move from being a reactor to being a reviewer. The same applies to social feeds. Curating who you follow is a direct application of Stoic choice. If an account consistently leaves you feeling unsettled or distracted, that is a clear impression. You can assent to the story that you must endure it, or you can judge it as content that does not serve your peace or purpose and adjust it. The goal is to protect the quiet space necessary for your own thoughts to form, for your own direction to emerge without the static of 1,000 other voices. Implement a digital sunset, a conscious ritual where you silence notifications and step away from screens an hour before rest. This is not just good sleep hygiene. It is the nightly securing of your inner space. It tells your mind that the day's impressions are over, that the time for granting assent has passed, and that the space of night belongs to restoration, not reaction. Your challenge is a one-day audit. For a single day, carry a small notebook or use a notes app. Each time you find yourself reflexively reaching for your phone to check social media, news, or email, make a quick note. Do not judge it, just mark it. Then, if you can, pause for one extra breath and ask what thought or feeling just triggered this reach. Was it boredom, a hope for connection, a search for distraction? This audit is not about stopping the behavior immediately. It is about bringing the automatic impulse into the light of your awareness. You are mapping the triggers that currently command your attention, and in that mapping, you reclaim the power to choose where you will truly place it. Before you seek more, ask, have I fully used what I already possess? Stoic gratitude is about asset management for the soul. This is not a passive feeling of thanks. but an active audit of your internal and external resources, a practice that grounds your mind in reality and builds a foundation of strength from which all directed action can spring. It is the deliberate counter to a scarcity mindset, that anxious feeling that you never have enough time, enough skill, or enough opportunity to begin. By regularly acknowledging what you truly have at your disposal, you shift from operating from a sense of lack to operating from a position of sufficiency. This is not about complacency, it is about clarity. You cannot direct your energy effectively if you are constantly telling yourself a story of deficit. Marcus Aurelius began his days with this exact grounding ritual. In the quiet of the morning, he would list in his mind the things he was grateful for. But his list was not limited to comforts or good fortune. Crucially, he included the very obstacles and difficult people he was likely to face. He was grateful for them because they presented the raw material for practicing patience, courage, and resilience. He saw each day as a field of assets, and even the rocks and weeds were tools for building character. This reframes everything. The difficult colleague is not just a frustration, they are an asset for practicing diplomacy. The tight deadline is not just a pressure, it is an asset for focusing your concentration. When you start to see your entire situation as a toolkit, your mindset shifts from victimhood to agency. Let us make this tangible with a simple exercise, a reverse form of the premeditation we explored earlier. Each morning, for just a moment, bring to mind one ordinary blessing you completely take for granted. It could be your sight, your ability to walk, the steady presence of a loved one, or even the simple luxury of a quiet morning. Now, briefly imagine what your day would be like if that single asset were suddenly absent. Do not dwell on the thought, but use the fleeting moment as a lens. When you open your eyes or take that first step, you do so with a sharp, instant recognition of its utility and its gift. This practice does not create fear, it creates vivid appreciation. It turns the background blessings of your life into foreground tools you are now conscious of possessing. You stop overlooking the very resources that are already fueling your journey. This conscious gratitude stabilizes the mind because it roots you in what is real and available right now. Anxious striving often comes from focusing on a distant, imagined resource you do not yet have, while ignoring the capable hands and the sound mind you are using to reach for it. You are trying to climb a ladder while complaining you do not have a better ladder, failing to notice the strength in your own arms and the firmness of the rung already under your feet. Stoic gratitude is the act of checking your footing and your grip. It is the confidence that comes from knowing your starting point is solid. Your reflective practice is to conduct a brief asset audit. Not of possessions, but of capabilities and connections. As you consider your day ahead, list 3 assets you already have right now that you can actively use. Your first asset might be your capacity to learn, which you can use to understand a new task. Your second could be a supportive relationship, which you can use for a moment of honest counsel or shared encouragement. Your third might be a lesson from a past challenge, a piece of hard-won wisdom you can apply to a current decision. Write them down or simply hold them in your mind. This is not wishful thinking, this is strategic inventory. By naming these assets, you claim them. You move them from the category of unnoticed background to the category of active tools. Your direction for the day now begins from a place of recognized strength, ready to put what you already possess to its fullest and most purposeful use. We overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can do in a year. Stoicism is the philosophy of the underestimated year. It is the quiet, deliberate practice of aligning your daily thoughts with a horizon far beyond the immediate craving for a result. True self-direction is not found in the explosive burst of motivation that fades by Wednesday. It is forged in the patient, persistent application of principle, day after ordinary day. This is where thought management meets the virtue of patience. To manage your thoughts is in large part to manage your expectations. It is to quiet the inner voice that demands immediate proof that your efforts are working, and to replace it with a deeper trust in the compounding interest of consistent, virtuous action. The Stoics constantly used the metaphor of the farmer. A farmer does not plant a seed in the morning and return in the afternoon, frustrated that there is no harvest. They understand the process. Their job is to prepare the soil, sow good seed, water diligently, and protect the young shoots. They do this regardless of whether the sun is shining or the rain is falling on any given day. Their focus is entirely on the quality of their tending. The harvest arrives in its own season, as a natural consequence of that faithful, patient work. Your character is that field. Your daily practice of examining impressions, aligning desires, and taking principled action is the tending. You cannot force the growth, but you can absolutely guarantee the care. This long view is the ultimate defense against feeling overwhelmed or discouraged. When a day feels unproductive or a setback arrives, you are not thrown off course. You simply note the conditions and return to your work. The goal is not today's visible progress. The goal is the integrity of today's effort. Consider the process of learning a complex new skill, like playing a musical instrument. The undisciplined mind wants to play a song beautifully right now. When the fingers fumble and the sound is imperfect, frustration can set in. The effort feels wasted. The Stoic-directed approach is different. The aspiration is to make music, but the daily directed action is simply to practice scales with focus for 20 minutes. It is to listen carefully to each note. It is to correct one error in posture. Success is redefined as the quality of that 20-minute session. Fluency is understood as the eventual, natural outcome of hundreds of such sessions stacked patiently together. The same principle applies to building a meaningful career or a deep relationship. You cannot command a specific outcome or instant connection. You can command showing up with diligence, offering genuine value, listening with attention, and acting with kindness. These are the seeds. You plant them daily and you trust the process of growth. Your patience is not passive waiting. It is active, persistent faith in causality. Good actions repeated build a good life. This is the marathon of character. The sprint is for those who need quick validation. The marathon is for those who are building something that lasts. So bring this to your own longest path. Identify one aspiration that feels distant, a change or a creation you hope to see in your life a year from now. Now break it down, look past the grand outcome and ask, what is the single most important virtuous action I can repeat daily? What is the equivalent of the farmer's daily tending, the musician's daily scales? It might be writing one thoughtful paragraph, having one patient conversation, completing one task with undistracted excellence, or spending 15 minutes in study. Your directive is no longer the far-off horizon. It is the next faithful step. Direct your thoughts to that step and let patience handle the rest of the journey. Failure tests us, but success can change us. A hidden challenge waits in the moment of applause, a subtle shift more complex than any setback. How do you manage good fortune without losing your way? The Stoics understood that our character is often more exposed in victory than in defeat. Praise, windfalls, and achievement are still events outside ourselves, the same category of indifferent as any loss. Their pleasant nature does not change their fundamental status. They are not you. To tie your identity to them is to build your home on shifting ground, subject to every change in circumstance. The disciplined mind receives success with genuine gratitude but without clinging attachment. It sees good fortune as a new kind of raw material, provided for further meaningful action, not as a reward that defines your worth. Seneca offered thoughtful guidance about this feeling. He observed how prosperity could reshape the powerful in Rome, writing that good fortune is a restless thing. It moves you about, lifts you up, settles you down. His advice was to treat it as a visitor, not a permanent resident. Welcome it when it arrives, enjoy its company, but never believe it has come to stay or that you are owed its presence. The moment you start to believe the applause is your permanent soundtrack, you have handed over your internal compass. Your own direction becomes dependent on the next round of cheers, and you will begin to make choices not from principle, but from a deep need to keep the audience engaged. Consider the practical test of a new responsibility. The undisciplined reaction is one of personal expansion. I earned this, I am better, I have arrived. This story attaches your core sense of self to a title and a salary, external markers that can change as quickly as they were given. It can create a subtle distance that separates you from colleagues and a comfort that softens the very edge that earned the opportunity. The Stoic reception is different. You feel the natural pleasure of recognition, you express gratitude for the trust placed in you, and then you immediately return to the work. You see the new role not as a crown but as a fresh platform. It is a larger field on which to practice the virtues of responsible leadership, humble service, and wise stewardship. You remember with quiet clarity that this platform could change through a shift in structure or a turn in the wider landscape. That memory is not fear, it is freedom. It keeps you grounded in the work itself, not in the symbols that surround it. This steady perspective applies to any positive development, from creative recognition to a financial gift. The undisciplined mind spends the gift immediately, seeking another wave of pleasure, or it guards it closely, feeding a new worry about its loss. The Stoic mind sees it as a resource for meaningful action. Perhaps it becomes an opportunity for generosity, supporting a cause you believe in. Perhaps it allows for greater stability, easing future concerns so you can focus on purposeful work. The resource itself is neutral. Your character determines whether it becomes a tool for good or a seed for concern. Your reflective prompt is to look back with clear eyes. Think of a past success, a moment of praise or achievement that felt significant at the time. Did receiving it change your daily habits or your deeper values, even subtly? Did you perhaps work a little less diligently afterward, believing you had proven yourself? Or did you become more cautious, concerned about not living up to the new expectation others now held you to? Now, reimagine that moment through a Stoic lens. How could you have received that same good fortune with more balance? You would have enjoyed the moment, thanked those involved, and then quietly returned your focus to the next right action, using the opportunity not to rest but to begin anew. This is how you walk through fields of fortune without forgetting your true direction, keeping your self-guidance rooted in character, not in the changing weather of applause. Draw two circles, a large one for everything you think about, a small one inside for what you can actually affect. Your mission is to shrink the big one and grow the small one. This is the circle of influence versus the circle of concern, a modern map for navigating a core Stoic idea. It transforms a philosophical boundary into an active, daily practice of energy management. The large outer circle contains all your considerations, the state of the world, the economy, other people's choices, the final results of your efforts. It is vast and full of noise. The small inner circle holds your true domain, your own judgments, your actions, your attitude, your character. Most of our scattered energy comes from a simple geographical error. We are living mentally in the large circle of concern, pouring our precious attention into territories we cannot govern, while our own inner province lies underfunded and underdeveloped. The Stoic shift is a deliberate relocation. You withdraw your mental residency from the chaotic outer ring, and you move with all your focus into the inner circle. You stop being a commentator on the uncontrollable and become a dedicated builder of what you can influence. This model, popularized in modern times by thinkers like Stephen Covey, finds its philosophical roots in the clear teaching of Epictetus. He drew the line, and this draws the circle. It is a dynamic, empowering interpretation. Dwelling only on the large circle is not just fruitless, it actively weakens you. It drains the very energy you need to strengthen your inner circle. Every act of disciplined thought, every choice aligned with your values is an investment. It is like depositing bricks and mortar directly into your circle of influence, slowly but surely expanding its borders. As your inner circle grows through consistent practice, you naturally become more effective in the world. Your sphere of genuine impact widens not because the world changed, but because you built the capacity to engage with it more skillfully. Take a consideration that feels overwhelmingly large, like the well-being of our planet. Place that entire, complex issue in your large circle of concern. The changing climate, international policy, the actions of billions of others. These are legitimate things to think about, but they are not within your direct command. If you live only there, the feeling can be one of helplessness. Now, look within that large circle and draw your smaller circle of influence. What resides there? Your personal habits, your choice to learn about sustainable practices, your voice in your local community, your career path if you choose to orient it toward environmental solutions. Your vote, your daily decision to appreciate and care for the natural space immediately around you. This inner circle is not small in meaning. It is the only place where your energy translates directly into action. Directing your effort here is not an abdication of responsibility. It is the only form of responsibility you can actually fulfill. It turns broad anxiety into local agency. Your practice for integrating this is tactile and direct. Find a piece of paper and literally draw the two circles. In the large outer ring, quickly write down 3 current considerations that are on your mind. They might be a challenge facing a loved one, the stability of your industry, or events in a distant part of the world. Now, in the small inner circle, write down 3 things that are squarely within your power regarding these situations. Your inner circle items might be: I can learn more to offer better support. I can update my professional skills to remain adaptable. I can contribute to a reputable organization or communicate with my representative. The act of physically sorting them is transformative. It visually separates the noise from the signal. Finally, choose just one item from your inner circle of influence. Decide on one concrete, small action you will take today or this week that aligns with it. This is the process of shrinking the big circle by ceasing to feed it with your worry, and growing the small one by investing it with your focused action. Your power does not lie in the size of your concerns, but in the deliberate expansion of your influence, one chosen brick at a time. No skilled pilot ends a journey without checking their instruments. The Stoic Evening Review is your daily instrument check for the journey of character. This practice, called meditatio, was a non-negotiable ritual for philosophers like Seneca. It is not a diary of events but a debrief of the soul. Its purpose is singular: to audit your own governance, to see where you steered true and where you drifted off course, so you can adjust your heading for tomorrow. This is the operational heart of practical self-direction. The moment you move from being a passenger in your own life to being its chief navigator. Seneca described his own nightly ritual with beautiful clarity. He wrote that he would question himself at day's end. When the light was out, he would go over his entire day, reviewing what he had done and said. He would ask himself pointed questions. What habit did I improve today? What temptation did I resist? In what way am I better? Notice the focus. It is not, what did I achieve, but how did I govern myself? The goal is not productivity, but integrity. For our modern application, we can adapt these questions into a simple, powerful framework. Where did I act in accordance with my principles today? Where did I stray from them? And most importantly, what specific insight can I carry forward? This turns every day, regardless of its outward success or challenge, into a training session. A day where you stumbled but learned becomes more valuable than a day of easy, unexamined comfort. Let us walk through a brief, concrete example. Imagine your day included a long, frustrating customer service call. In the moment, you felt your temper rising, but you consciously took a breath, softened your tone, and patiently worked through the issue. That is a point of alignment. In your review, you note it. You acted with patience and self-control, principles you value. Later that same day, during a lunch break, you found yourself engaging in a bit of gossip about a colleague, adding to a negative story. That is a point of straying. You acted in a way that did not align with the principle of kindness or fairness. The review is not for self-criticism, it is for clear sight. You acknowledge both without drama. Then you ask the learning question, what does this tell me? Perhaps it reveals that patience is easier for you with strangers than with teammates, or that idle time can lead your mind toward uncharitable chatter. Your course correction for tomorrow becomes specific and actionable. I will be more mindful of my speech in casual settings, and if a negative topic arises, I will either change the subject or find something constructive to say. This practice installs a feedback loop into your life, closing the gap between intention and action. Without it, we repeat the same patterns indefinitely, vaguely aware something is off but never diagnosing the cause. With it, you become your own wisest teacher, offering gentle, precise corrections that compound over time. The entire process need not take more than a few focused minutes. The value is in the consistency, not the duration. Your invitation is to conduct a 2-minute version of this instrument check tonight. Before you sleep, find a quiet moment. Bring to mind one single interaction from your day, any conversation that stands out. Now, examine it through the foundational lens of the dichotomy of control. Ask yourself in that interaction, what was truly up to me? My intention, my tone, my listening, my response, and what was not? The other person's mood, their assumptions, their reaction. Simply sorting that one event into these two categories is a profound act of nightly navigation. It tells you exactly where to place your effort tomorrow and what to peacefully release. This is how you ensure that each day, no matter how turbulent the weather, contributes to the steady, true course of a self-directed life. Stoic thought management is not a collection of random tips. It is an integrated system, a daily operating system for a self-directed life. Until now, we have examined the individual parts, the disciplines of perception, desire, and action, the tools of perspective and resilience. But a tool is only useful when it becomes part of your daily rhythm. The true power emerges when these practices are woven together into a single, self-reinforcing loop of morning preparation, midday application, and evening reflection. This is the daily flow of self-direction, a cycle that builds character through consistency, not through grand, occasional effort. Marcus Aurelius gave us the blueprint for the morning. He wrote that we should rise with the thought that we are rising to do the work of a human being. This is not about checking a to-do list. It is a moment of intentional orientation. Your morning preparation, which need only take a few quiet minutes, has two simple aims. First, to set your intentions through a brief form of the Premeditation of Difficulties. Mentally walk through the likely challenges of the day ahead, not to worry about them, but to pre-decide how you will meet them with patience or courage. Second, to ground yourself in gratitude, conducting that quick asset audit we discussed. Acknowledge one capability or one ordinary blessing you possess. This dual practice drawn from Marcus does not create a perfect day. It creates a prepared mind. Then you step into the day itself. This is where the teachings of Epictetus become your real-time navigation system. The entire day is a continuous exercise in the discipline of ascent. Every impression, from a stressful email to an unexpected delay, knocks at the gate. Your practice is to insert that conscious pause, to examine it, and to choose your judgment. Throughout this flow, you apply the discipline of action, focusing on the integrity of your effort in every task, large or small. And you maintain the discipline of desire, rooting your satisfaction in the quality of your work, not in the elusive outcome. The day is no longer a series of things happening to you. It is a sequence of chosen engagements, a field for practicing virtue in real time. As the day closes, the wisdom of Seneca guides the final, crucial phase. The evening review is your debrief. In just a couple of minutes, you look back without judgment. Where did I act in alignment with my principles? Where did I drift? What single insight can I carry into tomorrow? This is not about guilt or self-congratulation. It is about calibration. It turns experience into instruction, closing the feedback loop. You learn, you reset, and you prepare to begin the cycle again, slightly wiser, slightly more resilient. What might this integrated flow look like in practical, time-bound terms? Imagine a minimalist routine that demands less than 10 minutes of your day in total. Your morning preparation, the intention setting and gratitude, takes perhaps 3 focused minutes before you check your phone or start your commute. During the day, you commit to 5 mindful minutes in total, scattered in tiny pauses. That is the space between impression and reaction, a conscious breath before replying to a message, a moment of objective representation when a plan changes. Finally, your evening review takes 2 minutes before sleep, a simple mental sorting of one key event through the lens of what was up to you. This is not an overwhelming regimen. It is the deliberate threading of philosophy into the fabric of your ordinary hours. Your reflective prompt is to become the architect of your own daily flow. Do not try to adopt everything at once. Instead, design your own minimalist Stoic routine by selecting just one practice from each phase. Choose one morning preparation, perhaps the brief asset audit. Choose one midday application, like the conscious pause before speaking in a meeting. Choose one evening reflection, such as the 2-minute review of a single interaction. These 3 small, connected acts create your own operating system for a self-directed life, turning scattered insights into a coherent path of daily growth. The steering wheel for your life is not in your hands, it is in your mind. Every external goal, every plan you make, depends entirely on the quality of the thoughts and judgments you cultivate within. Practical self-direction is not a time management trick or a productivity hack. It is the internal discipline of managing your impressions, aligning your desires with what is good, and directing your actions from a place of principle, not from reaction. This is the architecture we have explored together, a system built on a single, liberating truth, the dichotomy of control. That line you draw between what is up to you and what is not, it is your foundational map. The pause you insert between an impression and your judgment, that is your moment of true freedom. The daily integration of perception, desire, and action, that is the practice of building an unshakable inner citadel from which you navigate the world. This is not about achieving a state of perfect, emotionless calm. It is about the practice of returning, again and again, to that place of clear choice. You will have days where the pause feels natural and days where you react instantly. You will have moments of profound alignment and moments where you drift from your path. The goal is not perfection but persistent, gentle realignment. Marcus Aurelius, after a lifetime of this practice, left us a final, unifying thought that captures the entire endeavor. He wrote that the universe is change and our life is what our thoughts make it. The external universe will change with or without your permission. Your life, however, is shaped by what you do with those changes, by the judgments you form and the character you choose to express within them. Your directed action, born from managed thought, is how you participate in that universal flow, not as a leaf tossed in the current, but as a conscious part of the stream itself. Begin where you are, start small with intention. Perhaps tonight you take just 2 minutes for that evening review, sorting one event through the lens of what was truly yours to command. Or tomorrow morning, you grant yourself a single, conscious breath before you reach for your phone, a tiny reclaiming of your attention. These are not minor acts. They are the first deliberate sentences in the story you are authoring. Stoicism, at its heart, is this lifelong journey of becoming the author of your own life, of learning to write your character with the ink of your daily choices. It is a practical philosophy for anyone who wishes to stop being a passenger and start steering. We would love to hear from you in the comments. Of all the principles we discussed, which one resonated with you most deeply? Was it the power of the pause, the liberation of the dichotomy of control, or the quiet strength of the inner citadel? Your reflection helps build our community of practice. If you found this guide useful, consider subscribing for more content that turns ancient wisdom into practical tools for modern life. Thank you for your time and your attention. Go well.